He had power, success, and everything money could buy, but he sat alone on a park bench with no one to call his own. Then a little girl in a tattered coat looked up and asked, "You don't have a family either?" That question cracked something. Deep inside him, she invited him to a birthday party with cold pizza and one missing candle, and by the end of that night, he didn't just gain warmth. He found something no fortune ever gave him: a family. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's jump into the story. The wind was sharp in the city that evening. Winter still clung to the streets, pushing people indoors and sending dry leaves skittering across the sidewalks. Under a gray sky, the park sat mostly empty. Only the hum of distant traffic and the soft creak of tree branches filled the quiet air. Miles Hartley sat alone on a wooden bench, his hands tucked into his coat pockets. He looked like a man who had everything. His coat was thick and expensive. His shoes were polished. His scarf matched perfectly. But his eyes were empty. He stared at the ground like he had nowhere to be. He had been sitting like that for over an hour, ignoring the cold, ignoring the world. Behind his stillness was a mind full of noise. Deadlines, meetings, empty greetings, lonely dinners. Had built an empire. People called him brilliant, driven, unstoppable, but no one called him friend, and no one waited for him to come home. He didn't hear her approach, not at first. Her voice was soft, like a whisper breaking through the frost. "Don't have anyone either, do you?" Miles blinked and looked up. Standing in front of him was a little girl, no older than 4. She wore a coat that was too big, sleeves hanging past her hands. Her boots didn't match. One was pink and one was brown. She hugged a teddy bear that had only one eye. "What did you say?" Miles asked, surprised. She repeated it slower this time. "You don't have a family too." He didn't know what to say. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Not with honesty. Not without a filter. He hesitated, then said quietly, "No. Not anymore." The girl nodded like she understood perfectly. "Me and Mommy don't have one either, just us and Teddy." She lifted the bear and smiled proudly. "Today's my birthday. I'm 4. Miles opened his mouth, but the words got stuck somewhere in his throat. She kept talking. "Mommy said we're going to have pizza and a little cake. She'll save for it. I get to blow out a candle. It's my favorite part." Miles forced a small smile. "That sounds nice." The girl's expression dimmed. "But Mommy was sad this morning. She said the shelter was full again, so we might sleep outside." Miles felt a lump grow in his chest. The cold suddenly felt colder. "I told her it's okay," the girl continued. "I said maybe if we invited someone to my party, it wouldn't feel so lonely." She looked at him again, really looked. "You can come if you want. It's not fancy, just pizza, but I'll share." Miles stared at her. He should have said no. At work, calls people waiting for answers. But none of it felt real anymore. This small girl with mismatched boots and big eyes had offered him something no one else had. "You're inviting me?" he asked. She smiled and nodded. "It's behind the old pharmacy. Mommy says the wall back there stays warm." Miles took a deep breath. Something inside him shifted. Maybe it was her voice. Maybe it was the way she didn't ask for anything except his presence. "What's your name?" he asked. "Uni," she said. "Mommy says it was her grandma's." "Name. That's a beautiful name," he said. "I'm Miles." "Hey." "Well, Mr. Miles," she said. "Would you like to come to my birthday party?" He looked at her again. Not as a stranger, not as a problem, but as a light in the dark. He nodded slowly. "I'd be honored, Junie." She clapped her hands and started skipping ahead. "Mommy's going to be so happy." Miles stood up, brushed off his coat, and followed her. Her small boots tapped across the pavement. Her teddy bounced with each step. She chatted with the bear as they walked. The sky was darker now. The city lights flickered on in the distance. They walked past shuttered stores and glowing windows. The streets were quieter here, colder, lonely. Miles didn't say much. He just watched her move, full of life, full of hope. She had so little, yet gave so much. He thought about the last time someone invited him to anything. He couldn't. Remember, he had spent so long building his success that he forgot what it felt like to be seen. And now, a child had seen him. They turned a corner. When he pointed to a narrow path between two buildings. "It's down there," she said. "Mommy's waiting." Miles nodded and followed her into the dim alley. The wind howled behind them, but in that small space, something else lingered, something warmer, and for the first time in a very long time, Miles Hartley wasn't walking toward work or meetings, or noise. He was walking toward something that might matter. He just didn't know it yet. The alley was narrow, hidden between two faded buildings with cracked bricks and peeling paint. A soft orange glow flickered near the back wall, where a small glass jar held a tea-light candle. Well, it wasn't much, but it pushed back the darkness just enough to make the space feel a little less cold. Jaina skipped ahead, teddy bear bouncing. Against her side, "We're here," she said, turning to Miles with a grin. He slowed down as he entered the alley. The air was bitter and the ground was damp, but Uni didn't seem to notice. She moved with the excitement of someone who believed in good things even when life had been hard. Beside the warm wall sat a woman. Her back turned as she adjusted a pizza box in a small crate. Her coat was patched in places, and her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun. She looked up when she heard the footsteps. Her eyes went straight to Uni, then to the tall man behind her. In an instant, she stood up, placing herself between her daughter and the stranger. "Mommy, this is Mr. Miles," Uni said cheerfully. "I invited him to my party." The woman's expression was cautious. Her eyes scanned Miles from head to toe. Expensive coat, leather gloves, clean shoes. He did not belong here. Miles held up his hands slowly. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm sorry if I surprised you." I didn't want to let her down. She studied his face for a moment. Then with a small nod, she said, "I'm Naomi." "Mother." Miles stepped forward, just enough to show respect, but not to push. "Thank you for letting me be here." Naomi didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Well, we don't have chairs, but you're welcome to sit." Miles nodded. He removed his gloves, folded his coat, and laid it down on the cold ground. Then he sat on it, crossing his legs so he could be eye level with Uni. "Is this the party feast?" he asked with a smile. Juna nodded proudly. "Mommy got us pizza, a cupcake with one candle. She saved for it." Miles looked at Naomi. Her expression was tired, but strong. He saw the love in the way she placed the food carefully, the effort in every little detail. Naomi opened the pizza box and handed a slice to each of them. She took the smallest piece for herself. Miles took only one. He made sure Uni had the biggest. "This is the best pizza ever," Uni said with a mouthful. "I agree," Miles said, taking a bite. "Delicious." After a few minutes, Naomi lit the candle on the cupcake. The flame danced in the breeze, small and steady. "Ready to make your wish, baby?" she asked softly. Jano nodded and closed her eyes tight. "I wish nobody ever has." "To be lonely," she whispered. Then she blew out the candle. Miles felt something move deep in his chest. It wasn't a wish for toys or candy. It wasn't about presents. It was about people. It was about love. And it was the most beautiful thing he had heard in years. He looked down, blinking quickly to stop the tears rising in his eyes. Turned. Slightly trying not to let them see, Naomi noticed. She didn't say anything, but her expression changed. The walls she had put up were still there. One or two bricks had shifted. Jenna took a bite of her cupcake, then held it out to Miles. "Do you want some?" He pretended to take a big bite and made a silly face. "Wow, that's amazing. I think it's magic." Uni giggled. "You're funny, Mr. Miles." They sat together for a while, not talking much. Just eating, just being. The pizza was almost gone. The cupcake was half eaten. The candle sat in a little pool of melted wax on the crate. Naomi leaned back against the wall, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders. Miles glanced at her. "She's incredible," he said. Naomi nodded slowly. "She's everything." When, somehow, She still believes the world can be good. Miles looked around the alley, at the cardboard bedding, the blanket folded neatly in the corner, small plastic bag with their few belongings. "This is where you stay?" he asked quietly. "Only when the shelters are full," she said, which is often. He didn't know what to say. Everything he owned could fill rooms, closets, buildings, and yet here, in this small corner of the city, was a celebration that meant more than any gala or dinner he had ever attended. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me be a part of tonight." Naomi looked at him. Really looked. There was still caution in her eyes, but also something else. Recognition. Understanding. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I know," Miles replied, "but I wanted to." Uni yawned and leaned against her mother's side. Her eyes were heavy now, her small hands still clutching the bear. Naomi adjusted the blanket and pulled Uni close. "She'll sleep well tonight," she said softly. Miles stood up, brushing the dirt from his pants. "I'll let you get some rest." He started to walk away, then stopped. "Happy birthday, Uni," he said, looking back. "Thank you for coming," she mumbled, eyes already closing. Miles smiled. As he stepped out of the alley and into the cold night, city lights stretched out before him, but behind him, in a quiet corner with a flickering candle and the little girl's wish, something had changed, and for the first time in a long time. He didn't feel quite so alone the next morning. Miles returned to the alley. He wasn't sure why he expected them to still be there. The flattened boxes were gone. So was the candle jar. Only a few footprints in the slush remained. The alley was cold and quiet again. It's just another forgotten space in a busy city. He stood there for a while with his hands deep in his coat pockets. Something felt off in his chest. Not panic, not confusion. Just a strange emptiness. He didn't even know their last name, but he had to find them. He spent the next 2 days walking. He visited soup kitchens, community centers, and shelters. He asked gentle questions. He showed no signs of wealth or power. He didn't bring a driver or assistant. This was something he needed to do alone. On the third evening, the small downtown shelter behind an old church, he saw them. Janu was sitting at a folding table, coloring quietly with her teddy beside her. Naomi was in the corner, drying dishes with other volunteers. Her shoulders were tense, but her face looked calm. Miles stood near the doorway, unsure if he should step in. Naomi saw him first. She froze for just a second. Then she walked toward him, wiping her hands on a towel. "You found us," she said, her voice unreadable. Miles gave a small smile. "Wasn't easy? You didn't bring anyone?" "No," he said, "just me." She nodded once. Soft sign of trust. From that day on, Miles returned often. He brought warm food and takeout containers, claiming they were leftovers from office events. Uni would squeal with joy, especially when the meal included mashed potatoes or sweet rolls. Naomi stayed cautious. She always thanked him, but with a quiet voice. She never asked for more, never leaned too far. Miles didn't push. He just showed up. He noticed things, like how Uni's shoes were starting to fall apart. He found a cobbler nearby who fixed them for free. When that didn't hold, he donated a new pair in her size to the shelter box, when Naomi had a deep cough one. Night, he returned the next day with a thick wool scarf. It was old, soft, and carried a faint scent of lavender. "It belonged to my grandmother," he said. She used to say it could warm even the coldest heart. Naomi touched the scarf carefully. "It smells like something safe," she whispered. But not everything was easy. One day, he offered money. Enough for a motel or a better shelter. He handed it over quietly, wrapped in an envelope. Naomi's face changed. Her eyes hardened. "Thank you," she said. But no, Miles looked confused. "It's just to help." "I know," she replied. "But I want my daughter to grow up knowing we made it through on our own, not because someone handed us a way out." He nodded slowly. "I understand." And he did. More than she knew. After that, he helped differently. He called a local clinic and asked if a doctor could stop by the shelter. He never said his name, just covered the fee. He asked a friend at the public library if a child's card could be issued with no address. Uni loved books, especially ones about animals with silly hats. Naomi noticed everything. She wasn't naive, but she also noticed how Miles never asked for credit, never showed off, never made her feel small. He just stayed. One evening. The shelter was quiet. The wind outside howled against the windows. Most people had already gone to sleep. Miles sat with Naomi at a metal picnic table outside, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. He poured cocoa from a thermos and handed her a cup. Janie was curled up on another blanket nearby, her teddy tucked under her chin. Naomi held the cup close. Steam rose in soft curls. "Do you ever think one moment can break everything?" she asked suddenly. Miles turned to her. "Yes," he said simply. "I was studying nursing," she said. "I wanted to help kids, but my guardian at the time was supposed to take care of me. He didn't." Her hands tightened around the cup. "I was too scared to speak up. By the time I did, I was pregnant, alone, no place to go, no money, no degree. No one believed me." Miles didn't speak. He just listened. "I lost everything," she said. "But I kept her. I fought for her. And she's the best part of this world," Miles said softly. Naomi looked at him, her eyes no longer guarded, just tired. "I'm not looking to be saved," she said. "I just want to be seen." "I do see you," he said. She turned away, her jaw tight. "You don't know what it's like to hold it all together every day?" "You're right," Miles said. "I don't, but I do know what it's like to go home to silence, to feel like no one would notice if you vanished." She looked back at him. For the first time, there was something in her eyes that wasn't just strength. It was curiosity, maybe even hope. He added, "You're stronger than you think.
Ed.
You're not alone anymore." They sat in quiet after that. No promises, no big words, just two people, sharing warmth on a cold night, while a small child slept nearby with a smile on her face. A week after the night they shared cocoa outside the shelter, everything changed. Naomi was folding clothes in the laundry room when a staff member called her name. She turned around to see a woman with a clipboard waiting at the door. "Miss Naomi Clark?" the woman asked. "Yes," Naomi replied, unsure. "I'm with Child Protection Services. We received a report about your daughter, Uni." Naomi's heart sank. The woman's voice was flat but not unkind. "We understand you've been trying, but we need to investigate whether your current situation is safe for a child. Until we complete the assessment, Uni may need to be placed in temporary care." "No," Naomi said, her voice shaking. "She's fine. She's safe with me. Please, she's all I have." But her words did not stop the process. When Miles arrived later that day, he found Naomi sitting outside the shelter, holding Uni tightly. Her face streaked with tears. A staff member pulled him aside and explained everything. Miles didn't wait. That night, he stayed up gathering documents. He created a binder with everything he could find. Photos of Uni, healthy and happy, proof of shelter staff support, receipts for food, records from the doctor's visit, even a letter, signed and notarized, offering himself as a legal sponsor. 3 days later, they sat in a small office with plain walls and tired chairs. Naomi clutched her hands tightly. Miles sat beside her. Uni waited outside with a volunteer, too young to understand. The wait in the room. The lead officer began. "We've reviewed your case. We understand your efforts, but the law requires us to ensure a stable environment." Naomi's voice was soft but steady. "I love her. She's fed. She's warm. She laughs every day. Please don't take her." "Duh." Officer leaned forward. "But you live in a shelter. There's no income. No address." Miles stood. He placed a photo on the table. It was from Uni's birthday night, her small face glowing in candlelight. "I've been supporting them," he said, "not out of charity, because they are doing everything right. I've seen Naomi choose dignity again and again." The officer looked up. "In your relationship to the child?" Miles didn't pause. "I'm a friend. And if needed, I will be her sponsor. Legally, I can offer them a home." There was silence. Then the agent nodded. "We'll approve a 6-month protective plan," she said. "Naomi retains custody, with Miles Hartley as sponsor." Naomi covered her face. The relief broke over her like a wave. Miles placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away. In the days that followed, things began to shift. Naomi started to smile more. Eunice's laugh grew louder. Miles visited more often, not just to help, but to be part of their day. Then one afternoon, he made a quiet offer. "There's a room at my place," he said gently. "You'd have privacy, safety, no strings. Just until things are more steady." Naomi hesitated. Before she could answer, Uni tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, he used to be sad, but now he smiles." Naomi looked at her daughter, then at Miles. A few days later, she said yes. The house was warm and filled with light. At first it felt too big. It's quiet. But Miles gave them space. He left little touches. Towels folded, fresh fruit on the table, a pair of tiny slippers for Uni by the door. Naomi found work through a local clinic. She was proud to accept it on her own merit. She worked hard, arriving early and staying late. Her strength earned the respect of everyone there. Miles kept showing up. Never too much. It's always just enough. One evening, Naomi came home to the smell of something slightly burned. In the kitchen, Miles stood over a pan, a sheepish smile on his face. "I tried," he said. "Don't judge the salad. It's uneven." She laughed for the first time in weeks. Really laughed. After dinner, they tucked Uni into bed. Then Naomi stood at the window, watching the snow fall. "She's happy here," she said. "So am I," Miles replied. They stood in silence. Something had grown between them. Not out of rescue, not out of need, but out of trust. Then slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "This belonged to my grandmother," he said. Inside was a simple ring, old and beautiful. He knelt, not for show, not with grand speeches, just with quiet sincerity. "I lost my family a long time ago," he said. But that night in the park, when Uni looked at me like I mattered, when you'll let me stay in the cold with you, something came back." He looked up at her. I love Uni. Will you marry me?" Tears rolled down Naomi's cheeks. She nodded. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. And for the first time in years, they both felt whole. Months passed. Spring arrived. The living room filled with laughter and crumbs. Balloons danced along the ceiling. A handmade banner read, "Happy 5th birthday, Uni." 10 children gathered around the table. Kids who once had no homes, now laughing, loved. Janice stood in a puffy dress with a crown made of paper stars. He looked at her parents' eyes, shining, ready to make a wish. Naomi asked. Jana nodded and closed her eyes. "I wish this family stays forever." She blew out the candles, and for Miles, for Naomi, and for a little girl who once had nothing but hope, it already had.